I think our role is to ensure that services go off without hitch, and furthermore, that the people in the congregation and the people sitting in those seats and those pews and whatever, they have the chance to meet the Lord and see the Lord how we do, and I think that it's an amazing thing for us to even be able to worship the Lord, let alone serve him, is
Mhm.
humbling. It's amazing. It's a huge opportunity.
Hello, my name is Hugh Plappert, and welcome to Church Tech Careers, where we go into the back office of ministry and learn how to uplift our church members and have an impact on our communities through technology. And today's video is brought to you by PhoneLive.io. No matter how young you are, there is opportunities for God to use you in church tech and to make a difference in lives. Hello, my name is Hugh Plappert, and welcome to Church Tech Careers. And our guest today is Shaun Travers. Welcome, Shaun.
Hey, thank you for having me.
We really appreciate you joining us on
Yeah.
our inaugural first recording. We want to talk to the person looking at going into church tech. Maybe they're volunteer, part-time or
Mhm.
full-time, or they just have got started, and learn from your experience. Let's go all the way back to
Mhm.
how you got started.
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest thing in my life is blessings, right? Like, I started when I was 10 at a fairly big church around us. And one of my friends at the time, he worked at the church, and he was a few years older than me, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to come and like push necks on slides?" I was like, "Okay." And then it really just catapulted me and sent me to be able to I guess go and do what I do now. It's that small step forward that small introduction rather, that really helped me to get to where I am today. That's where I kind of started, and then I volunteered for a long time. Ended up getting hired at a couple different churches, and almost a year ago now. Actually, it's crazy, time flies. But I was hired here at Riverview Evangelical Free Church in Baldwinsville, California. And it's just been, like I said, a blessing and an honor to be able to serve the Lord in any capacity, but especially in a capacity like this.
Sure, very cool. If you were to define the goals of your job that they gave you as
Mm,
a AV tech, what's that scope? What does it look like?
sure. How I would personally describe my role, rather, right, is
Mhm.
I'm our lead. I lead the whole production team, all of our volunteers, our staff, everything. I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. I think our role is to ensure that services go off without hitch, and furthermore, that the people in the congregation and the people sitting in those seats and those pews and whatever, they have the chance to meet the Lord and see the Lord how we do, and I think that
Mhm.
it's an amazing thing for us to even be able to worship the Lord, let alone serve him, is
Mhm.
humbling. It's amazing. It's a huge opportunity.
Mhm. Right. We always dream as young people having that ultimate job, being a fireman or something like that, right? We don't see the whole scope. When you look at the scope of the work that you do, what is
Mhm.
maybe a challenge that you had to face, you had to navigate through, and the good Lord helped you get through it?
Yeah, well, just in like a work setting or a church setting, a big thing is my age. I'm 19 years old. I'm a young guy. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. That's why we're here, to learn and grow. That's one of the biggest things though, is that sometimes people will look at my age and be like, "Hey, you're still really young," and it's a valid point. I am here to learn. I can always learn and grow more. However, I think that there's a lot of also other strengths that come from being so young. One of those strengths is that I grew up with all this like quote unquote new age technology. I mean, I know a lot of people, obviously everybody's used a digital console and such, but I grew up pretty much only with digital. I used analog for 2 years before digital really became big. Stuff like that. So like I said, there's a lot of areas where even I can grow, but also a lot of areas where it's kind of helpful to have that younger perspective.
Is there an instance in your work where you saw your work bear fruit and you're proud that the Lord used you at that time and moment?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, every day, I come in and I mean, man, if one person in the congregation lifts their hands to the Lord because they're praying and they're worshiping, that's enough for me. But one major thing that I noticed is when when I was a kid, like I said earlier, I had a mentor named Cody, and he kind of introduced me to tech and helped push me in tech, and he actually also helped me in a like growth my walk with the Lord, and actually got to see him a couple weeks ago, and it was a lot of fun and stuff. But he really helped me to get to where I am now. And actually, it's funny. There's a youth at our at the church that I currently work at Riverview, and I see a lot of like how I was when I was his age in him. The switch, now I'm getting to, in a way, mentor him and push
Mhm.
him to be best he can be. And he's really interested in tech now and stuff, in production. He's really interested in lighting. So it's awesome to see him grow. So
Right.
yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, at your church, you guys do a live stream.
Mhm.
What does that, setup look like?
Currently, we're using what is an A10 Extreme Pro. That's our switcher. So we have 6 cams, six cams. Lower thirds graphics, all the fancy stuff. Um, and then we use C. Currently, we're using C300s cameras. Just get a few different shots, and those are on pan and tilt, like, what are they called? Pan and tilt converters. We can pan and tilt them with a little remote. We're actually currently looking to upgrade and possibly move into PTZ soon or live camera ops. For audio, we run Pro Tools currently. We run audio through from our front of house to Pro Tools, and then we have a live stream operator that runs Pro Tools.
Churches aren't really rich, right,
Mhm,
compared to businesses,
mhm,
and you gotta maintain quality
mhm.
while maintaining a budget.
Yeah.
Um, how do you balance the quality and budget situation?
Yeah, well, I think that that's a really great question. One of the major things that I find is it is it's easy to look at those bigger churches and stuff and say we want to be like them, right? We want to have the same budget as them and all of that, or even those businesses, those big productions, different concerts, stuff like that. Be like, oh, they have all this, and but we have a lot of churches have the equipment, and you can do a lot with fairly, you don't need you don't need $6,000 cameras, you can do a lot with just a $300 camera if you have it set up correctly, if you can run it correctly, there's so much capability now through just everything, one of the major things is audio, right? I came from using D Live, fairly well, one of the highest grade consoles that you can use now, concert level. And then I came here and we use an SQ7 as our front of house, and it works amazing. I think a big thing to remember is the context of your congregation, what your room needs. We don't need a D Live for our room. We don't need to really upgrade. The SQ7 is working perfect. you know? I think when it comes to budgeting and making sure that you can set forward those budgeting goals and making sure that you're not spending, too much money and such. Yeah, just really think about what the congregation needs, not what you want. Which is something that I honestly struggled with when I first started here. I was like, well, I think it would be cool to have this, this, and this. I want a new lighting console. I want this. Then I really took a step back and I was like, okay, we're running good as it is. In fact, we're running great. We can we don't have to upgrade, make a huge purchase to upgrade, We just need to change our mindset, how we're doing stuff, why we need to be more intentional with
Mhm.
why certain lights are doing what or why we switch to certain camera angles, That's all a really long-winded way of just saying I think if you're just intentional with what you purchase and why you purchase it, and furthermore, what you do and why you do it, you should be set.
Mm. Technology moves pretty fast. It's always getting faster and faster. What do you do or how do you find resources for training?
It's a great question. Funny enough, a lot of people look down on this, but YouTube, especially in lighting or video switching. You can find so much. I mean, I taught myself a lot off of lighting. Actually, over there, I have an Ave Lights Quartz, which is a huge concert based lighting console. It's a really nice console. I taught myself everything on it because of YouTube. Ave Lights, they just post like hours of content, how you can run stuff or how it works. Use YouTube. Use the people around you. If there's somebody who knows about audio, right? Talk to them, be like, hey, what do you know? And compare what you guys know. That's a big thing, is obviously take in what everyone says, but really reflect on it. Because if one person comes up to you and says, well, you should run your room at 108 decibels or whatever number. It's like, well, for this context, maybe not. You can find a lot just from YouTube and the people around you. Always feel free to outsource too. I mean, if you guys, if whoever's watching this has any questions about anything, they can always contact me, or um there's a couple people from Elevation Church that I've contacted personally just on Instagram, shot them DM being like, hey, why do you guys do this and how? you know? Not in the sense of like, well, why are you doing this? But in the sense of, I want to know like how I can better this, or better the church here.
What kind of people skills, you're 19, we're in
Yeah.
the middle of this. What kind of people skills do you need? Because you gotta work with the ministry leadership,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta work with sensitive members, of the
Hmm.
church, and you've got a team to encourage and lift up. What kind of people skills do you see that you need working in AV in a church?
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a great question. A lot of the people skills that you need, I mean, sounds obvious, but a good attitude, what does that look like? Coming in, being ready to shake everyone's hand, be like, if you're a sound guy, don't stick in the booth. Go talk to the musicians, say hi, shake their hands, get to know them, grow those relationships. That's a big thing because, there's the whole, what's it called? Like the whole joke that all sound guys are like those, like, "Oh, yeah, I guess I can do that," but it's like, go in with the attitude of, "Hey, I can make it happen, and if not, I will figure out how," I think that that's a big thing, so just have that attitude. I think attitude's a big thing. Uh, you have to be very intentional with how you talk to everybody, from congregants to leadership to the worship team to your own team to your fellow AV members, depending on what your role is. Just be very intentional with what you're doing, with how you're talking, with how you're communicating. And I think communication is what builds any kind of relationship, but especially a great team.
On your live stream, AV, just start back a second, you serve the congregants in their worship experience. You're also serving the folks online. Who do you see as your audience on your live stream?
I think we have definitely an older congregation here at Riverview, and we're in a way very modern, with how we do things, with what songs we choose to sing, and all of that. But we have a very much an older congregation. A big thing is that a lot of the people online, it's not that they want to stay home; it's that they unfortunately have to. They're sick, they have something going on. That's why I personally live by, well, let's make the live stream just as good. The in-house. I want somebody to be able to sit in-house and feel like, "Hey, I'm feeling it," but I also want somebody who's sitting at home, or especially somebody who's having to sit in a hospital bed or something like that, to be able to also see that and be like, "The Lord, is speaking through me." I've had times where I'm watching, church live streams through, different couple other churches. One of the old ones I used to work at, I'll watch their live streams, I'll pop in here and there, and man, you can people can feel if you do it correctly, and they can feel the Lord moving through them, and kind of showing who they are, or sorry, showing who He is, rather, to them. If you do it correctly, it could be a huge thing. I think on that topic, it's more than a job. We're obviously here to support the congregation. This is a job, but it's more than that. We're here to ensure that people get eternal life. And that's crazy to me, to think about. But um that's why, like, one distraction can ruin it all. That's why we have to be very intentional. Again, there's that word.
Well, I think everybody has a oops moment.
Yeah, right.
Do you have one you like to share?
So when I first started here, um this was even in the moment, I was like, "This is a bad idea." But our SQ7, the 16.0.0 update just dropped, and our iPad automatically updated into like to the new version. So the iPad wouldn't connect to the SQ. And our audio engineer, he's a really cool guy. He actually worked with like Elton John and with these
Right.
really big names. A really cool guy. He's like, "Hey, I really want the iPad," and I was like, "Well, then we have to update the console, and it'd be this whole thing." And he goes, "Well, I really want it." I said, "You know what? It should be fine. It shouldn't I've updated SQ7s before from like 15.0.1 or whatever to like 15 whatever, not a big deal. I update the console. I save the show file onto a drive, and I update the console, and it boots back on, and I grab a microphone, I turn it on, nothing. And what I failed to really think about, just in the hecticness of the Sunday morning, um, was stage boxes would need to be updated. Their firmware needs to run through and actually um, you know run properly. The Mons console would need to be updated. We got no signal to anything. And that was my biggest funny, like, oh no, on a Sunday morning, you know. We ended up making it work. We got a couple of our mobile our not P's, our mobile speakers, and we put them up, and it ended up working out really well. We just plugged one guitar, one vocal mic into it, an acoustic and a vocal. And actually, besides it being really quiet, obviously, because it's one little speaker. But besides being really quiet, we got a lot of feedback from the congregation saying that was actually kind of cool. Like we liked that that acoustic sort of feel, that
Mhm.
pulled down, less boomy feel. And it really gave us a different perspective. I think that really showed me a whole different perspective of like when you make a mistake, you can learn, but also it can still be a like fruitful and great thing. I don't know. That was just a funny like, oh, why would I do that sort of moment.
Yeah. When you wake up in the morning, what's that passion that drives you to go to work?
Man, let me tell you. Obviously, one of the things I love is production, lighting, audio, getting to come in and play with all these things that this is my dream job, and I have it at 19, crazy cool. Um, at first it was this big feeling of like, hey, I'm getting to do this awesome job, that I love and enjoy. And that's a great thing. I think that's totally fine to look at it and say, I love my job and I'm excited to go into it. But when you work in a context like this, at a church or in some place like that, really I had to change my mindset from I love to do this because it's fun to I'm doing this for the congregation. Honestly, the reason like Sunday mornings, I get up at 5 in the morning, right? To get up, get dressed really quickly, drive over to the church, it's worth it though, because getting to see the congregants lift their hands on a Sunday morning, like I have chills right now thinking about it. It's like
Yeah.
every Sunday, just seeing the congregants getting to praise the Lord. Man, it just makes me feel so incredibly happy. And like it makes me be like, yes, the Lord is moving not only in my life, but the Lord is using me to be able to move in other people's lives. I don't know. That's obviously probably the biggest thing is getting to see the congregants and talk to them and grow those relationships with them is a big thing. My first 6 months or so, I was kind of a little more closed off than I probably should have been. I'm still getting used to everybody, getting to know everybody, and now I can tell you I know most of their names. It's awesome.
Good.
It's an honor, really.
Right. Um, so you're 19.
Yeah,
I got started in church tech actually at a Bible college.
yeah.
As I was enrolling, they had a problem with their TRS-80, a Model 12. I don't know if you know what that is or not.
Awesome. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I sat down and fixed it, and I got a working scholarship. When I
Mhm.
graduated, the pastor prophesied that the keyboard would become my pulpit. This is the days before the internet.
Yeah.
Um, and so I got started at 18. My son started at 17, and by age
Mhm,
19, he was the top network person for Best Buy.
mhm,
That can be kind of scary, right?
mhm.
For a young person to step up, take up a lot of responsibility to be a leader
Yeah.
in an area that, like, the ministry, they aren't that techy. They're really dependent on you.
Mhm.
And if you trip up, you know, it costs them. Let's talk to that young person. And how would you recommend that they get started?
Totally. Yeah, no, that's an amazing question. I think when you're young in a context like this, of working at a church and being in that AVL or production role, mistakes that you make will be seen as, in a way, inability to be able to do what you're there to do, or not having lack of understanding. I think a big thing is not everybody obviously understands the whole production field. Obviously not everybody looks at the sound console and goes, "Oh, I know what this is." I guess that's one big thing is like just remember that what you do obviously matters, but if you trip up, it's going to be seen a little bigger, a little more. I think overall, for any sort of young person that's wanting to hop into the role of any form of production, uh, volunteering, just being a technician, being a lead, getting to lead a team. Again, come in it with an open mind. A big thing is being willing to ask questions. No matter how old you are, it's amazing to go in with the mindset of I need to learn and I want to learn. I want to get to know everybody and I want to get to know furthermore how consoles work. I don't know, I think that that's one of the biggest things is go into it with an open mind and that feeling of being humble, really humble yourself down to be able to say, I don't know. I don't know it all, Can you help me learn more about this? And I think that that's honestly such a hard thing to do, to really dive deep and say, you know, I I want to learn or to really, I guess, dive deep and ask questions, especially because then it makes it look like you don't know as much. But if you have a question, you don't know as much as that person. I don't know. I think that that's a big thing. Just be willing to ask questions. Be willing to learn. Go into it with a learning heart. And I think furthermore, again, it's about the attitude too. Like I could have an amazing audio tech that knows everything, but if they're not there to praise the Lord and lift up the Lord, it really comes down to then they're there for the wrong reasons. And just keep that in mind. Keep your attitude in check. Be humble, be ready to learn, be ready to ask questions. Those are my biggest things.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. If folks wanted to reach out to you and connect with you, how can they do that?
Totally, yes. My Instagram is the Shaun Travers. You can find me pretty easily. And then also if you go on the Riverview E- Riverview Evangelical Free Church website, it's in Bonzel. You can find my email there. Feel free to shoot me an email, a DM, a text, anything really, and I would love to reach out and grow that. I guess in a way, grow that community, grow that opportunity for not only you guys to learn from me, but also for me to learn from you guys. So it's not a one-way street. We'll both learn from each other. So yeah, feel free to come to me with any questions and yeah, or anything really.
Yeah, well, a shout out to the E3 churches. Their headquarters is in Bloomington, Minnesota, just down the highway from me, right
No,
by
very
there.
nice. Yeah.
Been to a couple of their campgrounds. They
Mhm.
do a great job with camp. So awesome, E3 church. And again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We appreciate you leaving a review, liking, and sharing this podcast wherever you have joined us. I'm looking forward to next week here on Church Tech's Careers as we navigate the back office of ministry and how we can have an impact on our community and uplift the members of our local church. And today's video is brought to you by PhoneLive.io.